Hello and welcome to our presentation on a unique university project-based FHIR course here at Georgia Tech. I'm Mark Braunstein, Professor of the Practice Emeritus and founder of the course. After me, you'll be hearing from John Duke, the Director of the Center for Health Analytics and Informatics at Georgia Tech, and then Tia Pope, the Director of the Health Interoperability Branch. Well, I suppose this course is the inevitable result of what happens when universities think a bit outside of the box. Back in 2007, I had completed a career which began in medical school. There's a picture of me in medical school where I developed an early EMR. That led to my becoming a serial entrepreneur, started several health IT companies, the last of which was started at Georgia Tech's incubator. And when it was acquired, Georgia Tech reached out to me and said, we'd like to create a health informatics program. Would you come here and help us do it? So I was hired as a professor of the practice, which generally means an old guy with industry experience. And the first order of business was to start a course because there were no courses in those days. The course began as a rather traditional didactic lecture course. I experimented with one class doing a project and discovered that they learned more by doing an actual project than they learned by listening to me drone on and giving lectures. So we became a project-based course. I literally spent the rest of the afternoon and early into the evening reading about FHIR and had one of these eureka moments. This is it. This is what we need. And began retooling the course so that the student projects would be built around FHIR. I was lucky enough to get the support of my dean. We created one of the first FHIR servers out there, maybe the first on a university campus. And we came up with the idea of students doing projects, developing FHIR apps, mentored by domain experts. And the logical place to begin to look for domain experts at Georgia Tech was Emory Medical School and then the CDC, both of which are nearby. And that's really how it got started. And beginning with a relatively modest number of mentors and projects, the course grew as Georgia Tech offered OMSCS, the first completely online Master of Science in Computer Science program, which today has some 10,000 enrolled students. And with the growth of that program, the course grew from a few dozen students to literally hundreds of students every semester. Today, some 100 mentors from around the world have worked with teams of Georgia Tech students on nearly 1,000 projects. So this has been, we think, a major contribution to FHIR education. We know that some of these students have decided to go into the field. Some of them are working with companies you've heard of. Some of them are even working with FHIR-based startups. So it's very exciting history. I now turn the program over to John, who's running the course these days, to talk about some of the exciting stuff he's doing.
Thank you very much, Mark. Indeed, when I came down to Georgia Tech in 2016, which was in no small part as a result of Mark and his work and the opportunity to collaborate with him, I came down to start a center focused around health analytics and informatics. And our center had some breadth dealing with data and data analytics, dealing with user experience and dealing with interoperability. But I will be the first to admit that when I came down, interoperability was just sort of a glimmer, and I knew very little about it compared to Mark and what he had done. But he was kind enough to let me sit in and take part in his class, and I came down, and very quickly I saw the possibilities. So we said, how can we create kind of an app store within the Georgia Tech environment so that people could create their projects and applications, put them up in an environment that could then persist and be extended by students in the future, by mentors in the future, and so forth. And so that's where HDAP came from. And it's been a great way for us to have a really good understanding and insight into the work that's been done and how that evolves over time. I had the pleasure to be part of the initial work predating Odyssey called Omap, which then evolved from 2008 to 2013, and then 2013 became a community called Odyssey, which is really focused around bringing advanced methods to tackle health data on all kinds of questions, from clinical to quality to safety, cost effectiveness, and so forth. And they've built great tools. This example here is something called Atlas, which lets you explore your data, create cohorts, and actually develop some very sophisticated designs for studies that are publication grade. In order to execute on those studies, Odyssey and Atlas integrate with RStudio. And so you're bringing basically the methods, including deep learning, regularized regression, all types of cohort comparison techniques, to something that is ultimately designed through a combination of exploratory user interface integrated with RStudio, and produces a statistical rigor to the work that they did, in addition to the interoperability components. So, seeing a natural opportunity and need, we began working on something called Omap on FHIR. And that was the idea that FHIR is clearly the standard for moving individual patient data around, where Omap and Odyssey have been an emerging standard for running highly sophisticated, large-scale analytics. And sometimes there's common needs. For example, you might want to build a predictive model on a large number of patients, but then run that model against an individual patient, or build an app that runs and scores a patient's probability or risk of something, in which case connecting the two, Omap and Odyssey, became very critical. And also just moving data from now the standard FHIR-based output into an Omap-based database was something that we wanted to facilitate. So Omap on FHIR connects the two, and it's been a very a popular part of our entry, and we're always delighted when people reach out to us about how we can help them connect between Omap and FHIR in a wide variety of ways.
Thanks, Mark and John. Hello, everyone. I'm Tia. My journey with the course started in my master's program, where I took the course and soon after was invited to become the head TA, as well as help with the restructuring of the course based on my experiences as a student. As you see here, the result was a unit-based structure that focused on general informatics, which includes policy, security, and privacy, health analytics and visualizations, and of course, interoperability with a heavy focus on FHIR. Over the course of 15 weeks, students dived deep into special problems and tools in the field by working through hands-on labs, individual projects, and team-based projects where they are matched with external mentors with real problems to solve. As Mark mentioned, the course has drastically increased in student enrollment over the years. So in response, we built a stronger pipeline to support the hundreds of projects being produced each year. By providing a template-based, Dockerized approach, we have also been able to provide flexibility in the development options and a uniform deployment pipeline for students to utilize our HDAP app store, which John has previously mentioned. This solution has also made it possible for our small but mighty TA team of 12 to sufficiently track and grade student projects. I have also had the honor of developing our effective and yet simplistic approach to external mentorship, where TAs are essentially assigned as mentors and program managers of sorts for matched teams to help ensure the creation of a most viable product for both the mentor and teams at the end of each term. If you have any questions regarding our course format, pipeline, or mentorship, feel free to reach out.
We believe that the future is extremely bright for FHIR education. We've been extremely fortunate that here at Georgia Tech that we had Mark Braunstein leading the way from the very beginnings of FHIR, and up until now, we've continued to have an incredible number of students of highest quality, tremendous mentors from around the world, and we invite anyone here who has a project idea, who wants to collaborate with a group of Georgia Tech students, to let us know. Get in touch with us. We'll have our contact info on the next slide so we can have you included as mentors for these students. We're also working on a FHIR professional certificate so that not everyone who wants to learn about FHIR is able to take 2 years to do a master's degree, but they may want to work on getting a deeper level of education around FHIR than you might have with a short course. And so creating a professional certificate is one of our next objectives. And we'd love to talk with you more about that if you're interested as well. So thank you very much.
So we appreciate your listening into our session, but we don't want the session to end now. We'd like to stay connected with you after DevDays. If you're interested in a collaboration with any of the things that John Duke talked about, email him at the address shown here. If you'd like to participate in the course, maybe you'd like to be a mentor, email Tia at the address shown here. And if you'd like to explore any ideas you might have, or if you have any great stuff you're doing that I might need to incorporate in the new version of the book I'm working on, email me at the address shown here. Thank you all for attending. We'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Great video. Thank you very much. I actually have a question myself. Was it hard to implement such a project specific course, or was it actually sorry, I do not know the word for it, but was it well received?
Well, teaching a project-based course is more difficult in general than a traditional didactic course. It was a lot of work to get it going. But as you've seen from John and Tia, we eventually came up with a formula that works well even at scale. We said it in the video, but we got enormous support from the dean, the college student at Georgia Tech, and others. I wouldn't recommend it for the faint of heart.
I think the proof of the pudding in this case is that many of our mentors come back a second time, a third time, a fourth time. We've done hundreds of projects now across the years, and our repeat mentors are more common than the one-offs. So I think it does validate this model works not only for the students and for the class, but for the mentors as well.
It's great to hear.
I should have mentioned some of the projects have headed down the road toward actually being used for real. I think largely as a part of this course, as a result of this course, Emory University has now become a FHIR development center, and some of the apps that are headed toward the wards there started out as projects in this course. The same is true of the CDC. There are some FHIR apps that are starting to be used in public health that began as projects in the course. So
Great.
It's a very easy way for people to try something without having to come up with any money or get a grant or anything.
Yeah. All right. Actually, a lot of questions are coming in. It's a very popular topic, I guess. I will just start with the first one. Has Georgia Tech's program delved into decentralized identity and verifiable credentials?
So the work specific to the course, we've used sort of authentication mechanisms, but I wouldn't say we've necessarily had projects that have focused around that specific aspect. Maybe Tia, you're aware of any projects?
Yeah, we haven't had any. So we've had students, I guess the main thing with that was finding like open source tools that students could pick up and utilize for authentication purposes. So, I mean, they've pretty much stuck to using like link-based authentication that kind of simulates the handshaking, but not necessarily goes through, or they use something like Okta or some other open source single sign-on for that matter. But we don't focus on that specifically in the lecture material.
All right, thank you very much. Next question. When will your book be published, and how do I get my hands on a copy as soon as possible?
Well, the first edition is out. It's the Health Informatics on FHIR, how HL7's new APIs transforming healthcare. You can get it on Amazon, but I wrote it largely in 2017 and early 2018, so it's completely out of date now. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happened just in the last couple of years. So the new version should be out late next year.
All right, great. Then
Takes publishers a long time to get books out.
All right, next question. If a university outside the USA is interested in leveraging this work, how would they go about it, and what would skills and resources would they need?
Yes, can definitely reach out to us. We're more than willing to share our format, even some material. The biggest thing to prepare for is identifying a good group of TAs that could stick around for at least a year, so 2 semesters. I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting your first group of TAs that are graduating, but maybe a group of juniors in their program would be great. But yes, just reach out and we'll share that information with you.
So if
Yeah,
you
I
want
just
to
want to
collaborate,
reemphasize that no faculty has time to run a course like this on their own. TAs are absolutely critical. Also quickly mention, and I don't know, we still on? I actually spent time in Australia the last 2 or 3 years, and we've created a similar undergraduate course at the University of Queensland. Not nearly this big, 25 students last semester.
Yeah, and even to that note, we're actually going to be offering the course to our Shenzhen campus this coming spring, so that's pretty exciting as well.
right, great. Actually, so people can get in contact. That's why I put the contact information up again. So please feel free to reach out, as Tia said as well. Next question, they keep coming in. When and where will there be more info on the professional certificate you mentioned?
Was the question when or if?
When and where will the information be available?
When and where? Yes, I mean we're free to start communicating about that. If you're interested, again, we can share that. As far as publicly sharing about that information, as soon as we get some base pieces together, we plan to publish it for the masses to hear about it. But if you're interested in the meantime, definitely feel free to reach out to us.
All right, great. Actually, one more question. There's a long gap between writing the first edition in 2018 and then the new edition late in 2021. Is there something like a forum you host to discuss ongoing updates, or could you maybe do that in the future if it's not there yet?
Several people have suggested that there needs to be an ongoing way to keep the material current. So I guess I'm thinking about how best to do that. Perhaps an associated website. It is an incredible amount of work to write something like this, and this conference has been enormously valuable to me in making sure that I've covered all the bases I need to cover. And a number of key people in the FHIR community, Graham in particular, have been very kind to help point me in the right direction. Yeah, I recognize that doing a book every 2 or 3 years is not the best way to do this. So I'm thinking about it. If anybody has any ideas, please get a hold of me.
Okay, great. Then I will just keep on leaving the connection details on the screen. Actually, we only have 1 minute left. Is there anything else you would like to mention that you maybe did not fit into the video?
I think only to underscore just the incredible appetite that the community, the medical community, clinical, public health have had for engaging. So if you are looking at doing something like this at your university, at your center, we strongly encourage it. Happy to talk with you, because I'm sure the rest of the maybe less technical but domain experts really want to start working in this, and it's really hard to get moving in that way. And so these courses are a great way to make that happen. So we'd love to see these start popping up at other universities around the world.
Yeah, I would just make the point, and maybe it's obvious, but doing these projects, I think, is as educational for the mentors as it is for the students. And it has allowed many people with an interest that they didn't know could be solved by working in FHIR to recognize that that's the case, which is great.
I just want to put one note out there before we end as well, for those of you interested in the certificate program. If you're also interested in collaborating with us, please let us know that as well. You can really reach out to any of us three, but definitely for more information, you can send me an email and we can talk about what that means to collaborate.
Then one more thing before we wrap up. I got a last minute question, which is more personal. You mentioned the conference value. What, in your opinion, was the most startling about it? You can maybe all three give an answer to that, and then we can wrap up.
Apologies. Do you mind repeating that question?
Oh, no, of course. You mentioned, somebody said you mentioned the conference value. What is, in your opinion, the most startling about it?
I think I mentioned it. I'm not quite sure startling is the right word. I've been very pleased with the quality of the presentations and the general clarity of most of them. It's been very worthwhile. Problem is you can't attend them all. So now I've got to spend the next 2 weeks looking at the videos of the ones I couldn't attend.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's exactly it. There's so much great content, and it's growing so fast, both in the volume and the quality. I think that's the most. If I were to use the word startling, that would be the case.
Yeah, I think it's been galvanizing for me. And I think what I like most is connecting with the community. All of the different connections that we make across the board has been really awesome. And then I love the fact that, you know, this is one of the conferences that I feel really great being, you know, a woman, a mom. You know, as you can see my baby's here sleeping. I got to present. I was actually pregnant with him. So I really enjoyed DevDays and getting to know everyone. So
That's great to hear. Positive vibes. All right, then we really need to stop now. New questions are coming in, but please keep asking questions. They will be able to answer them later. And thank you all very much for your time, and enjoy the very last bit of DevDays that's still left there.
thank you.
Thank you all for attending.